I was 16 when I learned the truth. One of those discoveries that split your life in two, before and after. My dad, Mark Walters, was the kind of man who knew how to wear a mask. A pastor on Sundays, a motivational speaker online, and the world's best dad in our neighborhood. People adored him. And I did too, until the lies peeled back. It started with late-night phone calls he thought I couldn't hear, names I didn't recognize, and sudden weekend conferences that Mom was never invited to. At first, I told myself I was imagining things, but the evidence kept piling up, and I couldn't stay silent. One afternoon, while helping Mom with laundry, I found a hotel receipt in the pocket of Dad's jacket. Not for a conference center, not in a city he had ever mentioned. I remember staring at it like it was a knife with fingerprints all over it. I confronted him that night. My voice shook, but I laid the receipt on the kitchen table like a poker card. "Who's Kelsey?" I asked. The air turned cold. His eyes didn't flicker. He just stared at me for a long time, like I'd committed some betrayal by knowing. "You've been snooping," he said flatly. "That's not your business." "You're cheating on Mom," I whispered. He stood slowly. "You don't know what you're talking about." I thought telling the truth would fix things, but it only made everything worse. That weekend, I told my mom. She broke down, and for the first time in my life, I saw her truly shatter. Dad came home to find his bags packed, not by her, but by me. I stood by the door with my jaw clenched, ready for him to leave, but he didn't. Instead, he turned to me and said, "If you think you can destroy this family, you're wrong. You don't get to live in this house and cause chaos." He pointed to the door. "Get out." I blinked. "What? You want to act like a man? Fine. Go be one. You're not welcome here until you learn to keep your mouth shut." Mom didn't say a word. She just cried silently on the stairs. That night, I packed a backpack and slept at my friend Kevin's house. His parents were kind enough to let me stay a few nights. Then I moved in with my aunt, who had always been the black sheep of the family. Now I understood why. She believed me without asking twice. I didn't speak to my dad for years. He painted me as rebellious, a liar, told people I was struggling with anger issues. But I knew the truth, and deep down, so did he. Mom divorced him 2 years later, quietly, without a fight. She never fully recovered, but she started over, found a job, moved to a new city. We still talk. I think part of her still blames herself. Or maybe me. I can't tell. Now I'm 24, working full-time, renting my own apartment. I've built a life out of the ashes he left behind. Sometimes I wonder what he tells himself when he looks in the mirror, whether he feels guilt, whether he regrets choosing ego over his son. But I've stopped waiting for apologies that won't come. Because the moment he threw me out, he made a choice. And so did I. To survive. To speak the truth, even when it hurts. And to never let silence protect the wrong person again. I didn't just survive. I grew into someone my 16-year-old self would be proud of. Living with my aunt was a turning point. Aunt Rachel wasn't the type to sugarcoat things. "Pain makes people either cruel or strong," she said to me on my first night sleeping on her couch. "You'll decide which one." She didn't treat me like a broken kid. She treated me like someone who needed space, honesty, and a little bit of tough love. She helped me transfer schools, get a part-time job at a bookstore, and apply to community college later on. When I told her I wanted to study psychology, figure out why people hurt the ones they love, she just nodded. "Then start with your own story." Those years weren't easy. I battled trust issues. I flinched at raised voices. I shut down every time someone said, "You remind me of your father." But through therapy and sheer stubbornness, I pushed forward. Senior year of college, I wrote a paper titled "A Mask of Integrity," a personal case study. It didn't use real names, but anyone who knew me could read between the lines. My professor pulled me aside afterward and said, "This is painful, but it's powerful. Don't hide it." So I didn't. I started sharing my story online, first anonymously, then under my own name. Teenagers messaged me. Kids who've been gaslit, thrown out, blamed for telling the truth. They told me my words made them feel less alone. And I finally realized the pain had a purpose. One evening, out of nowhere, I got a text from an unknown number. Just 5 words. I regret what I did. I stared at the screen for what felt like forever. It was from my dad. No hi, no name, no real apology. Just 5 vague words, like that was supposed to undo years of silence and damage. I never replied. I deleted the message. Because regret without accountability isn't redemption. It's just noise. He made his choice. And so did I. Now, I speak at youth shelters and teen support groups. I tell them that exposing abuse or betrayal, no matter how hidden or well-dressed, is not wrong. It's brave. It's necessary. And it doesn't make you the villain. Some wounds don't close all the way. But healing isn't about forgetting. It's about reclaiming. Every time I stand in front of a room and say, "My dad threw me out for telling the truth," I take back a little more power. And that's something no lie can erase. I used to think the end of my story would be reconciliation, that one day my father would show up at my door, eyes full of remorse, asking for forgiveness with the weight of his mistakes written across his face. But life rarely follows the script we imagine. The real ending came not with an apology, but with peace. Not because he made things right, but because I did. I forgave him quietly, not for his sake, but for mine. Because holding on to that anger was like dragging a chain behind me, and I was tired of letting his choices dictate my steps. Letting go didn't mean forgetting. It meant freeing myself from the story he tried to write for me. I built my own, a life rooted in truth, in loyalty, in love that doesn't punish honesty. Now, when I pass a father walking hand in hand with his kid, I don't feel bitterness. I feel hope that maybe that child will grow up with the kind of parent I needed. And maybe someday I'll get to be that parent for someone else. Because my story didn't end when I was thrown out. That was just the beginning. And the rest? I'm still writing it, one honest page at a time. Sometimes I still have dreams where I'm 16 again, standing at the front door, backpack slung over my shoulder, my father's voice echoing in my ears like thunder. Get out. I wake up with my heart racing, sheets tangled around my legs like the past trying to pull me back. But now, I don't stay in that moment. I get up, make coffee, and look around at a life I built with nothing but truth and grit. A small apartment filled with secondhand books and sunlight. A dog I rescued named Chance. A growing list of clients I help as a counselor. Kids who feel just as discarded, just as betrayed. Every session, every story I hear from them, it reminds me, silence protects the abuser, but truth protects the wounded. There was a time when my dad's rejection made me feel worthless, like I was a problem for shining a light on what was meant to stay hidden. But I know better now. He didn't throw me out because I lied. He threw me out because I told the truth, and he couldn't face it. There's strength in that kind of truth. I found family in unexpected places. My aunt, my friends, even some strangers who became constants in my life. They taught me that blood doesn't define loyalty, and not every dad is worthy of that title just because he helped bring you into the world. Years later, I got invited to speak at a high school where a counselor read my article online and reached out. She said there was a student there who was going through something similar. I almost said no, but I went. I stood in front of that room, looked out at all those young faces, and said, "Your story doesn't end when someone else betrays you. It begins the moment you decide that you still matter, that your voice still counts, that no one gets to take your truth from you." The student who inspired the invite came up to me afterward, eyes filled with tears, and just whispered, "Thank you." And that moment, it healed something I didn't even know was still broken. So no, this isn't a story about a father who changed. It's about a son who did, about finding light after the darkness, and learning that the people who try to break you only win if you stop writing your story. And I'm not done yet, not even close.